So what if I told you that the playbook for today's biggest tech companies, the ones that basically run our lives, was actually written over 150 years ago by an oil baron? We're about to dig into the ruthless strategies that connect a 19th century monopolist to the giants who dominate our screens today. It's a story of ambition, of innovation, and where the prize is total control, and the playbook, it's barely changed at all. And that quote right there, it pretty much sums up everything we're about to talk about. You see, the commodity itself has changed. We've gone from the black gold that lit up America to the digital gold that fuels Silicon Valley. But the methods for building an empire, well, those are strikingly and sometimes kind of chillingly similar. All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the old and new empires. Then, we're going to uncover their surprisingly shaky beginnings and break down their playbook for absolute dominance. We'll see what happens when they get a little too powerful, and finally, we'll ask that big question. Are today's tech titans just modern-day robber barons? Okay, let's dive right in. From black gold to digital gold. See, to really get the playbook, you first have to understand the prize they were all fighting for. So picture this. It's the 19th century. Black gold is oil. And before electricity, if you wanted light, you were probably using these super expensive, kind of flickery whale oil lamps. Rockefeller's real genius wasn't finding the oil itself, but perfecting a way to refine it into kerosene, a cheap, bright, and really reliable fuel. By doing that, he wasn't just selling a product. He effectively owned the light of an entire nation. You see the pattern here, right? The structure of power is pretty much identical, just separated by a century. Rockefeller controlled the light by mastering its physical distribution on railroads. Today, YouTube and Netflix control our attention by mastering its digital distribution through algorithms. Different kinds of pipes, but the exact same principle of control. Now, it's so easy to look at these giants today and think, well, of course they were going to succeed. But the truth, it's way messier. Every single one of them started out as a total underdog. And honestly, they came this close to failing completely. I mean, look at these moments. Each one of these could have been the end of the story. Back in 1865, Rockefeller's partner got scared and wanted out of the crazy oil business. Rockefeller, he doubled down and bought him out. In 2000, a nearly bankrupt Netflix went to Blockbuster, begging them to buy the company, and they were literally laughed out of the room. And YouTube? You're not going to believe this, but it started as a failed video dating site called TuneIn, Hook Up. Yeah, almost nobody did. That quote, man, that says it all, doesn't it? The established giant, Blockbuster, saw this little upstart as a complete joke. They were the undisputed king of home video. This tiny DVD by mail thing wasn't a threat. It was just absurd. That laughter would go down as one of the most expensive business mistakes in history, ever. Okay, so how on earth did these rejected underdogs become the kings of their industries? Well, it wasn't just luck. They followed a very specific and pretty ruthless playbook for total dominance. So let's crack it open, starting with the guy who basically wrote it. Rockefeller's strategy was basically this killer three-punch combo. It was systematic. First, innovate. Use new tech to make a better, cheaper product. Second, control the pipes. He made secret deals with the railroads to get huge shipping discounts that nobody else could get. And third, and this is the brutal part, eliminate the competition. He used his lower costs to start vicious price wars, drive his rivals into bankruptcy, and then just buy up their companies for pennies on the dollar. And what's crazy is that exact playbook just got a digital makeover. Think about it. For step one, exploit new tech, YouTube used Flash Player to make videos work for everyone, while Netflix used the super cheap-to-ship DVD. For step two, control distribution, they built these powerful systems. YouTube's partner program created a content monopoly, while Netflix's algorithm controlled what you wanted to watch next. The result was a massive advantage that their rivals just couldn't compete with. So what was the result of all this ruthless playbook? Well, by the 1870s, Standard Oil didn't just lead the market, it was the market. A staggering 90% of all oil refining in America. That's not a business. That's a full-blown monopoly on a scale nobody had ever seen before. Rockefeller used price wars to starve out his rivals. Today, the battleground has changed. It's all about content wars. Instead of dropping prices, they just spend mind-boggling amounts of money to build libraries you can't compete with. In 2021 alone, Netflix spent $17 billion. That's not just to make some cool shows. That is a financial weapon designed to build a catalog so big that new competitors can't possibly afford to catch up.
But here's the thing. When you get that big, that dominant, you don't just fly under the radar. you get a massive target painted on your back from the public, the press, and yeah, eventually the government.
And the public backlash, it's like history is on a loop. Rockefeller was dragged through the mud in the newspapers and had to deal with violent strikes. Fast forward to today, and you've got YouTube facing the ad apocalypse, where advertisers boycotted them, and Netflix is constantly dealing with angry users over price hikes and canceled shows. The pattern holds. The bigger the empire, the brighter that spotlight of public anger gets. For Rockefeller, this all came to a head. It was the ultimate showdown. After years and years of fighting in court, the U.S. Supreme Court finally dropped the hammer. In 1911, they found Standard Oil guilty of being an illegal monopoly and handed down a corporate death sentence. The company had to be broken up. So, Standard Oil, the most powerful company on the planet, was shattered, broken into 34 completely separate, unaffiliated companies. It was the end. The empire was dead. Or was it? And this is where the story takes an absolutely wild turn. The government's big plan to destroy Rockefeller's empire, it accidentally made him the richest man in the history of the world. Seriously, he held onto his shares in all 34 of those new companies, and once they started competing with each other, their total value just skyrocketed. And boom, John D. Rockefeller becomes the world's very first billionaire. So that whole story, the rise, the fall, the ironic twist, it really forces us to look at today's tech giants and ask some tough questions about their legacy, especially since they're using his playbook. I mean, when you really look at the whole playbook, the underdog start, the ruthless tactics, the huge public backlash, you just have to ask, right? Are the people who founded Netflix and YouTube just John D. Rockefeller in a hoodie? The thing is, the legacy of these kinds of empires is never black and white. It's always a mix. Rockefeller, yeah, he was a ruthless monopolist, but his philanthropy, it's still changing the world today. YouTube, it's given a voice to millions of creators, but it's also struggled with misinformation. And Netflix, well, it completely changed how we watch TV, but it killed an entire industry to do it and kicked off these crazy, expensive streaming wars. It seems like for every big innovation, there's a cost. You know, Rockefeller's biographer wrote something that I think just nails it. He said that Rockefeller's good side was every bit as good as his bad side was bad. It's like he was two people in one, this brutal businessman and this incredible visionary. And that's the same question we have to ask about today's tech giants, isn't it? Does all the incredible good they create justify the way they dominate and disrupt everything? And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This playbook for building an empire, from black gold to our attention spans, it really hasn't changed all that much. So as we see new technologies popping up all the time, you gotta wonder, what's the next oil? And who, right now, is quietly writing the first chapter of the next Magnate's playbook?